A very good evening and welcome to the Fourth Estate. My name is Charles Mwangushampagi, and tonight we'll continue the discussion about ideology, but we're asking the question, the next 5 years and beyond. And tonight in studio, we are reproducing last week's set, less one person. So we have 3 people in studio. Let me start by introducing my colleague, Onapito Ekomoloit, Corporate Affairs Director of Nile Breweries SLB Mela. Ona, very nice to have you once again.
Good evening, Charles, and just drove all the way from Teso, so it's exciting to be.
You drove all the way from Asalata.
Asalata.
Yes, very nice to have you. Whatever it is that you're doing in Asalata, we'll be able to discuss some other time.
Some of us are peasants who just came to the city, so we retain our roots.
That makes the 2 of us. Let me also introduce Audrey Robogo. Audrey, very nice to have you again, just a week after we had you last Sunday.
Sure, thank you so much. Good to be back.
And we are unable to, my fault actually, we're unable to have Godby rejoin us this Sunday, but maybe later in the program we might be joined by someone else to have this discussion. Audrey, last week we had a discussion about ideology. I want to put to you a very straight question. What is an ideology?
It's a set of beliefs, a set of thinking that actualizes, well, you transfer the thoughts into natural reality. It's like, I'm drinking this water, it's in a glass, it's water in a container. What the container holds is more important than the container. Now, so if I take the movement, we run on 3 key things, which we think
so you're trying to define the movement ideology?
Yes. The meaning of the word movement is a spontaneous awakening by a people to liberate themselves politically, socially, even change their thinking, create a better country. That's what the movement means in terms of definition. But it runs on 3, if I could call them tripod stands. The first is that we believe that in every society, there are 2 tribes anywhere in the world that transform a country. The first tribe is called producers of goods and services. They use their capability to get something out of the farm or a service, bring it onto the market. The second tribe is called consumers of goods and services. Beyond and above those, we really think there is no other way you grow a country. We call that nationalism. Nationalism is a superior way of building a country. It is opposed to an inferior way called sectarianism. Sectarianism assumes that I become a prime minister or president or whatever it is, or even a permanent secretary, because of my tribe, because of my religion. And we have that because that's how Uganda was formed. The NRM assumes the position of nationalism because we know, what sectarianism has done to countries in the neighborhood. I don't have to talk about that. Nationalism now is translated to something higher because we assume that, for example, Malawi, which is $250 GDP per capita, which was a base. Malawi was used as a base against Zimbabwe, against Mozambique, in those days. They have only grown by $70 in the last 20 years. That country cannot make sense unless you unite it with Tanzania, with Uganda, with Congo, and create a supra entity. We call that Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism gives us 2 strengths very quickly. Gives you the market for labor, for capital, for goods and services, but also most importantly, defends the integrity of the African, because the largest aquifer of water in the world, the last one, is in Africa. And it can feed the world. The last time I checked, about 10 years. It's only in Africa. Now, the people we work with in other parts of the world really think that we're a bit on the backside of things. And it is possible to come back and recolonize this continent if we don't act together as Pan-Africanists. The third one, quickly, and I finish, is when you get nationalism, you unite it with Pan-Africanism, a society begins to transform. Because productive capabilities of people and markets are expanding, it means that people now move from peasantry to middle class. That is called socioeconomic transformation. It means that people no longer worship stones. People no longer, I saw a leader going into a stone to worship lately, and, and I'm kind of biting my tongue. People are no longer superstitious. People follow science. Now, we also believe that you cannot achieve those 3, Mwangusha, unless you're a patriot. Pan-African patriotism. There's an American who said patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. Some guy called Samuel Jackson many years ago. I told you when I was here that for me patriotism is like something called neutrophils, which is in your white blood cells. When you are attacked, those white blood cells go to your defense. We believe in the movement that Pan-Africanism is one struggle but many front. A doctor who shows up every day to treat kids is a patriotic one. A soldier fighting a war in South Sudan is a patriot. A teacher who shows up in spite of low pay is a patriot. A farmer who ensures that a child goes to school with a bottle of whatever drink or whatever sambogoya to school, like I used to do many years ago, is a patriot. Those are the four fundamentals that I would call, if I split this water open, it has hydrogen and oxygen. That's what you take. Those are the four fundamental principles we run on.
Okay. I'm reading from a book you generously gave me last week called The Future I See, Highlights of the Movement Ideology, Frequently Asked Questions, Achievements by Figures, Chairman's Message 2016 to 2021 by Odrek Wawogo.
It's a compilation of
yes, and this is what he says. I am writing to you to equip you with explanations to give to our supporters and non-supporters regarding the NRM ideology and the WOZA, strategy, Ntegeka, plans and programs, Ntekateka. The ideology of the NRM is based on four principles: patriotism, uzalendo, moyo gwa Uganda, Pan-Africanism, moyo gwa Africa, socio-economic transformation, okufuula abana Uganda abomulembe, and democracy, abana Uganda okwesalirawo. Something like that. And I see you also writing here and saying this book is a summary of the key tenets of the movement's ideology, some of its key achievements over the years, and the most frequently asked questions some of our leaders confront, either in the media or in meetings, especially from the youth. So ideology is not just an abstract idea.
Not at all.
It has to be transformed into
it is what
real
gives
politics,
thoughts.
isn't it?
You know, imagine I am a farmer transiting into an industrialist. My father got onto the land where I raised animals in 1964. It's taken us 52 years to be able to have a processing plant. But I saw it 30 years ago. When I finished school, I started day one, expand the farm, improve the skill, take back your family, understand how people live in order for you to be able to create a source of raw material. Now, I couldn't have just woken up and started a factory unless I had the thinking that it doesn't make sense to produce milk and ship it to Kampala. I have to turn it out into a product. So ideology gives thoughts legs, arms, and they walk.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, and I want to bring it on in a bit. When you have an ideology, the one you've just described to us,
I want you to separate it from political strategy.
Yes,
they are different.
Does it have timelines? Is there tangibility to your ideology?
There was a man called Jesus, and I'm just going to use a religious example. He didn't have a car, didn't have anything. He walked on earth. He preached to 12 people. One man betrayed him. He remained with 11. Now we have 2 billion Christians worldwide. We've never seen Jesus, but we know we live by those principles. So what you put to a timeline is a political party, is a political strategy, but not the thinking. The thinking of the movement is that when you transform from low productivity, low value economy and become a middle income country, it's not enough. You need to transit that economy into where the lowest income per person is $10,000. That's going to take us a lot of time, take us many years.
Is that your thinking? Is that the movement ideology? Where do you draw the line between what you think as Odrek Wawogo and what the movement as a political entity, as a political unit, actually thinks?
My thoughts, Mangusha, are drawn from the history of the movement. They're actually not my thoughts. I've read Nyerere, I've read Samora Machel, I've read the founders of the movement. I have read the early thoughts of the president. I have gone outside and looked at the practice. Remember, the theory sometimes differs from the practice. In the practice, we've had some challenges. I can tell you, when I was last year, I told you we were able to attack a force, a barracks in Masindi on 20th of January 1984. with half of our men armed, the rest were commandos carrying sticks. We were able to do more with less. Today we have more, but we seem to do less in certain things.
When the practice is different from the thought, do you then review the thought?
You return to the basics.
You return to the basics.
Yes, you return
over the last
to where the rain started hitting you.
You say you read from President Yoweri Museveni. You have followed his early thoughts as the founder of the NRM. That's also subject to question somehow, because the other, he was among the founders. Sure. Some people want to say.
Sure.
You look at a team that's been in charge of the country for the last 30 years. Went through an election last week. Recently. Forming government is underway. The president has been sworn in again. Parliament has been sworn in. We are waiting to see what cabinet he comes up with. And you're talking about tenets of democracy. You're talking about transformation. You're not giving them timelines. You operate in a world where timelines are important. And I think President Museveni has succeeded in something very interesting, to get his major opponent to dress in the yellow color of the movement. Dr. Kiza Besigye, incarcerated in Luzira.
Come on, Mangusha, please don't be cynical.
That's not ideological reorientation.
Is that ideological reorientation?
He was an ideologue of the NRM.
Honor, is ideology ideally supposed to be rooted in the practice, especially if you are a holder of the means and power to do certain things? What do you say?
Well, Charles, I think first of all, I would definitely agree that for President Museveni and the NRM to have come this far, they must be guided by, or they must have been guided by a certain set of beliefs, and because you couldn't have stumbled for decades just in the dark. So maybe some of the beliefs were not stated. Maybe what has been stated is not really what has guided, but one way or the other, President Museveni and the NRM have managed to go through storms, if you may call it, war and what have you, to come this far. So there must be some guidance. But again, as we said last time, and you have almost indicated that the problem is the ideology must also be shared. And of course the NRM is not just a small group of people, it's now supposed to be millions of Ugandans. I don't know whether they all share the ideology and what do they believe as followers that they are sharing. I think unfortunately most of the time people believe that it's about having power, it's about being able to get to resources, and that's what they want to share in. So the beliefs, almost like in religion, some people go to church, they want to gain church leadership, not necessarily because they are good Christian, but because sometimes they are goodies. So I think that's the biggest challenge for the NRM now is, do people really believe in ideology, or they are now believing in ideology as a means to resources, and disadvantage other people in the country and control resources? That is a big challenge.
What has happened, Honor, is that there is expansion of the political base. Many more actors have come in, and there has been very limited teaching of these fundamental values. And this is why I write, this is why I do all I can do to remind people of where we've come from, what made us work with limited means, and therefore remove the enemy within us that really thinks that politics is about power. No, politics is about purpose and service.
Odrick, the reality of this country is what we'll be discussing maybe in the next quarter in more detail, to try and place what you're calling this set of beliefs and whether you have lived them. Because if you haven't lived your beliefs, it means those beliefs are actually built on quicksand.
We have lived them.
You have lived them?
Yes.
And you have evidence
to support that? You want me to tell you?
I will. I'll come to you in a moment. An ideology, a set of beliefs that affects our outlook on the world, isn't it? And people who carry an ideology, they believe it so much that you stop distinguishing it. So when I hear Odrick Ruagogo trying to teach the ideology of the movement, to teach Ugandans patriotism, when I hear the government of Uganda and the parliament of Uganda putting a budget to teach patriotism, to teach Pan-Africanism, to teach nationalism, and then I see the practice, many people will ask and say, where's the connection between what you want to teach and what you actually believe, what you actually practice? Take the example of democracy. In your view, is Uganda moving on a proper democratic course?
Can I, for me, I contextualize things. It's very important to understand something when you put it into context. The NRM is 30 years in government. You asked Honor, and I don't know if, we got to answer the question. 30 years, and we're still teaching the same thing, and the practice is different. I just want to tell you that in 1986, our economy had contracted 14%. In real terms, that meant that for a civil servant to live in this city, they had to have a potato garden behind their house to survive. It took us 10 years, up to 1995, to come from negative up to zero. You know what that means in terms of building an economy? From negative...
I'm listening and reflecting on my village, your village, and Honor's village.
Let me complete this. Now, 96, as soon as we came to zero, we began UPE. UPE meant that you lift 23 million kids into school, you pay 900 billion shillings in terms of salaries every year, yet you also have to build infrastructure. Just not take a long time. As soon as we did that in 96, 16th of November 1996, we were attacked by in Kasese, in a town called Mpondwe, by Jamil Mukuru. We started a war. That joined with Konye War, we had to take 23% of our budget in 2001.
Please, hold it there.
I'm coming. Let me, please.
Don't get us lost.
Don't
don't get us lost.
I'm not getting lost.
Don't get us lost in
I'm trying to contextualize this.
In 1986, the economy was contracted.
Yes, had contracted.
Yes. And you say a civil servant needed to have a potato garden behind their house if they're going to live.
I can even give you a better dramatic example.
To make some meaning out of their life.
The industries had so collapsed, we were drinking white cup beer from Kenya.
Just a moment.
And you can ask Honor.
Audrey, I want you to look through that camera.
Yes.
And look at a teacher who spent the last so many years struggling to ask the government of Uganda to increase their salary. Inflation, you adjust the prices of 1986 to the prices of 2016.
Okay. Charles,
and tell me,
we didn't get to grow until 2009. Please
so
understand.
We just started growing in 2009.
Let me tell you, we returned to 1971 level in 2009. You can go and check those figures. Before 2009, we were putting 3 trillion in all social services, education, health, including roads. Let me tell you what has happened.
Your figures and statistics. I have a problem with
I think for me,
but without statistics,
for me, I think the challenge now is not that the economy is grown. I think the challenge is the sharing. And that's really what NRM needs to deal with, because there is a perception. Just hold on.
Honor.
I'm in business and you're in business.
192,000 primary school teachers. Because I want you to understand this.
I want to agree with you that the economy has expanded. There's no doubt about it. It's all evidence around us. Now the perception, it may not be the real. The perception is that there isn't equal sharing of that expanded
But
cake.
we can't, you see, you don't run a country. No, you can't. If you're a leader, you really are like a head of a home. You don't run on perception, you run on reality. Let me answer the question on teachers. We have 192,000 primary school teachers. That's 3/4 of our civil service. The minimum they earn is 400,000. If you multiply, it's 900 billion. We put 1.2 trillion in UPE. You must look at teaching not from a monetary gain only. These are the issues I want us to deal with the next 5 years.
900 billion
in salaries
month.
Per year. Per year. But here is the point.
How do you contrast
Charles, there's
that?
more. There's more we can do for a teacher than just pay.
How do you contrast that with the president standing before parliament and admitting that he paid 1.5 billion shillings to members of parliament to vote for a deputy speaker?
Have I told you?
How do you convince a teacher who is earning, who you say, consolidated, they earn 900 billion per year? Individually,
it's primary school teachers.
Primary school teachers.
Individually, it's about 4.8, I think, in a year.
400,000 or 4.8 million in a year. And you tell them, we are making steady progress. We have an ideology that is supposed to lead us to transformation. And the president stands and says, my MPs were facing some pressures. I gave them some relief.
Charles.
1.5 billion shillings.
Charles.
Because
walk with me. Walk with me carefully. You'll understand where I'm heading.
Because he preferred to have Jacob Bolanya as deputy speaker and not Muhammad Nsereko or any other competition.
I told you that there is the theory and the practice.
Yes.
Sometimes in the practice, there's an aberration. It's not the president who proposes. Those MPs that have come from wherever have not had any ideological shaping. They see these as jobs. They put pressure even to not pay taxes. But let me not, because you are taking me away from your main argument. The same president who has done that, you criticize it as wrong. I believe it is also wrong. I don't run for MP just to ask the president for money. Has given 25 billion shillings in a teacher circle, starting I think 2 financial years ago. But go and check how the teachers are running the circle. There is fight on where the money goes.
I'm asking, how do you convince?
So
there is the policeman watching this show.
For me,
there is the prison warder watching this show.
Can I complete
there is the
soldier
teaching? Watching this show.
Because you really
and there is the teacher watching this show.
You touch the raw nerve now on the teachers because I understand them very well.
And you're telling them, please, we have an ideology. This is what the movement believes in. It believes in nationalism. It believes in patriotism. It believes in Pan-Africanism. It believes in social transformation. And you tell them, when you're earning that, we can appropriate your money. The example of parliament is just one example. We can roll off, like you're trying to roll off statistics. We can roll off bad expenditures, bad expenses, and you say, do the beliefs and the practice align? And if they don't align, what does that mean? What is the responsibility of the drivers of that?
Let me complete the teacher. I'll go to the police and others. The teacher, you know, in a primary school, I remember my teacher in P5. I still remember his name. I saw him in a wheelchair recently. I walked 10 kilometers every day with my bottle of milk and a banana just to be able to sit in front of Semu to teach me English. I would forget the entire distance because the teacher is everything. Teachers are not just about pay. We need to check how often they are promoted. When you start as a teacher, you go through 5 layers in order for you to become a head teacher. We need to look at other areas of inducements that really make the teaching profession so admired than just the pay. In terms of pay, there's something called prioritization, Charles. We are putting 3.4 trillion in roads alone.
Something that Ona talked about.
You have seen now the difference with
roads.
roads.
I think we have lost it. Ona told you, this social transformation, is it possible that it is benefiting a small segment of the population, leaving the majority at the bottom?
I checked the
Paul Collier wrote a very, very good book called The Bottom Billion. And is looking at how the top 1% is drifting up, while the rest is getting stuck at the bottom of the pyramid.
It's not a Uganda phenomenon.
Okay,
gentlemen,
before you go back to ideology, I think to me the challenge right now in Uganda is not ideological. The challenge is management, regardless of what ideology you are pursuing.
Oh no, you can't manage without an ideology.
Yes, the ideology is there.
Where are you managing
But if
from?
you have an ideology which does not end with the proper application, which is management, then it can't deliver.
I think we've applied
Gentlemen,
significant portions of it
let's
very
pick this
well.
Up after a short commercial break. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and we're battling with the question of ideology, and especially the one that the National Resistance Movement, which is in charge of this country, tells us it lives by. Those ideals and the practice. Odrek admits here that the practice might differ from the thinking. And sometimes. We have Odrek Rawogo. He describes himself as a farmer and entrepreneur. I'll not go into his other titles or his other
That's
positions
all.
for now.
I also like writing and teaching the movement ideology.
We'll keep that off for now. And
retired journalist.
Yes, he's a former journalist. Would you think that the practice has derailed so long ago that the theory or the ideological thinking is not moving in tandem with what is going on the ground?
I don't think it has derailed entirely. Certainly Uganda wouldn't have held together. And I think by a lot of international analysis, by IMF, of course these institutions might have their own reputation, which is questionable. But I think there's general consensus that Uganda's economy is growing. that there are a lot of indicators, social and otherwise, that show that the country, but I think it could have done better. In my own view, too much premium has been put on politicizing delivery of the public goods, and it just is not working. The president himself has admitted over and over that the public service is not delivering as it should. I think he gets a wake-up call during elections, and unfortunately, when he settles down to doing the business, again he gets overtaken by politics, so to say. So now after the election of the speaker, I hope that was the last major political act for at least 2 years. Then he gets down to really cracking the whip. Ideology, yes, is the foundation, but I still believe there must be proper action to transform the ideological convictions into what the ordinary person understands. That they want a working hospital, they want a working school, they want a good road, I mean, they want clean water. This does not really, I don't think there's any political group, even if it's ideologically bankrupt, that cannot understand that these are the things that we need.
Two things, Odrick, before you come in. Before you came on air, I spoke to a friend of mine about preparing for this show, and this is what he told me. He said I should ask you the link between the practice and what you call the ideology. He said, if in 1981 to 1986, in rural Chivoga, the National Resistance Army and the National Resistance Movement found a functional hospital with running water, unless the rebels sabotaged, the running water was there. Unless the rebels sabotaged, there was electricity at that hospital. 30 years later, the hospital has, for the last 15 years, had no running water. Staff, patients use pit latrines.
Charles, I can stop you there because I know you're talking about the social service sector that has gone down over the years.
Yes, just a moment.
And I have answers and I have solutions
This is his question. What does a party like the one you believe in, which has had this longevity in power, has all this beautiful ideology, has all this will to work, link that ideology with such a hospital? And Chivoga is just one example.
Okay, I just told you that when we took power, you know, when I say we, I'm taking collective responsibility, yet I've never held a position in the movement. Even the last time I tried, there were issues. When we took power in 1987, I told you were negative.
1996.
Well, we had a year dilly-dallying with a minister called Ponciano Mlema, who wanted to do butter trade because he didn't know, how do you handle this? It's too much. We spoke to the World Bank, and the World Bank said, look, you have to deregulate. You have to get out of hospitals, get out of schools, and let the private sector take care of that, and reduce the army. We took down 50,000 soldiers from UPDF, at that time NRA. The situation that we had then is you cannot have quantity at the same time have quality. What my brother, whoever you asked, is talking about.
Nicholas.
What Nicholas is asking about is this. When you deregulate, when you take the government out of the social service sector and you focus on other things, certainly you are going to have Chivoga sounding like that. But what he doesn't know is that that one hospital, which was there then, has been replaced by 75 health centers at Health Center 3, where there is 29 workers. They don't show up all the time, all of them, where there is medicine. Today we have 75% of our population in 5-kilometer walking distance to health facility. So we may have done poorly on these national referral hospitals, and recently I wrote suggesting that we should have 10 of them combined with Mulago and create an authority that is able to allow capital infusion, skill, technology, so that this significant portion of our population that leaves Kanungu and Chivoga to come to Mulago and get frustrated, they can find some better management. So every situation has a cause. Now, if you don't know the cause, you're not going to find a solution for the one down the road.
Is it possible? I know you say you've been moving across the country teaching ideology, but is it possible that you might be significantly delinked from the young Audrey Rwabogo who carried a gourd of milk, or a bottle of milk, and a banana going to school, with an Audrey Rwabogo in Kazu here.
If they met,
Okay.
if they met the young one who ran away from the...
Yes. Is there a possibility?
No.
That
But
you
let me tell you.
No. That you and maybe a few others have been delinked from the reality of this country. That actually the things you're talking about, people are wondering and saying, which country does he live in?
No. First of all, a lot of our elite are really good at criticism and cynicism. For me, I walk the talk. I see a problem, I try to find a solution, and I get engaged personally. Let me tell you, I have 2 university degrees. I had a job in this city. I took my wife and children back to the farm to be able to understand, how do you say that America and Europe subsidize agriculture and they bring here needle, and you have thousands of farmers with improved capacity, but their price of milk is low? That led me to knowing, I mean, where do you take a child who has fallen sick on a nose hospital called Rushere? That's where my children were going, Ombarara. These are public places. I know these things, but I hate to be negative. I'm a very optimistic person, because I see that in a place, in my area, for example, where there was no electricity, no road, now I have a road, and therefore I can get my milk here 2 hours less than how it used to be.
You know,
there is electricity. And I also see that the private sector is investing in the social services where government has not done very well. But I also know that you needed to first create electricity and roads and UPE, and then come back to pay salaries, because the economy is increasing. Our budget now is no longer how it was in 2001. We can put... Today, we are putting about 12 billion. Let me tell you how I understand these things. We're putting 12 billion shillings in Mulago for purchase of medicine. What Mulago requires is 100 billion. I have sat with Mulago. You know, when people go and say, we don't find medicine there, there's only essential medicine from NMS, which is chloroquine, Panadol. Yet, we have 30 people on border accidents every day in that hospital. They require hip replacement. The Mulago hospital, you see, requires 100 billion. Now it needs new thinking on how you provide that cash.
Do you blame that on... do you blame that on ideology? Do you blame that on incompetence of management?
On the lack of practice of it. If we could
on the competence of management of the country?
Look, if we could take down a 60,000 people army with few weapons, if we could administer Luwero Triangle, you know that time we administered it, there was
Thank you, Audrey.
At that time,
one of the things I'm most confronted
I thought I admitted ahead of you. I said that at that time we did more with less. Today we have more, but we have people who just take position and they make sure that nothing moves unless their stomachs are catered for. They are politicians, they are civil servants, they have an alliance of a system that works, black system that works there. What you see on the surface is a facade. Now we have to deal with that as a country, because lack of collective values, when we all become critical, and we don't find solutions.
Look, I think now we need a new ideology, if I may call it so, or a new look. If we have arrived from Luwero, just hold on. We have come from Luwero to the point you have described, and 30 years later, that's where I think we need now really big thinking. How do we make those groups of people who are actually controlling the state machinery, who are controlling the government machinery?
Now, Honor, you're going to agree with me. We go back to the basics. Because they are spending more.
They are the people who are taking the decisions, and you are saying there is quite
a departure.
Some people have called it mafia or whatever you want to call it. So how do you break it? I think that's the new debate that should take place in the NRM.
Let me give you an example in farming very quickly to answer him.
Doesn't that tell us that actually the grand objective was not social transformation? The grand objective was to get power and hold on to that power. And the moment you got the power from Luwero, you concentrated on holding that power. And holding that power includes allowing corruption to thrive, trampling on the ideal of democracy, talking the talk of nationalism only in talk and not living it.
Let me tell you what we've done.
Yes.
We've made compromises along the way that have become a bean weevil that progressively adulterates our ideology. There is no one. Who has studied the movement very well, I know that power is meaningless unless it can transform a society, can transform a community. But because we have to make compromises, you have to have religion. People come into government representing religions. Don't you know that? People come into politics representing tribes. I got a call this morning from a few friends of mine who are now looking for becoming RDC or becoming ministers.
Because I know you can fix them.
They think that
yes.
They don't know how so
because over 30 years
how so pathetic that is for me. And they
yes,
say,
because over 30
you
years,
know, if you don't pick me, I represent this big group in this community. I say, what's your thinking in terms of the future jobs we need to create for the country? No. The jobs are now there for cadres because I represent my community.
And
compromises.
Yes,
those compromises, Charles, is why you see some of us instead channeling our anger back to the basics.
So do you still have an ideology?
Certainly.
No, you hold the means to create RDCs. When you can't accommodate the people you're just talking about, you create another district or you subdivide a district into a county so that you create another position for another RDC.
You know,
it's exactly the compromise. President Museveni is going to ask, I can tell you, President Museveni is working on establishing a new cabinet. Most likely, he's going to ask Parliament to change and allow him to appoint more ministers and more ex-official ministers. Why?
I don't know what President Museveni is planning, and I really would think that I would.
His friends who have lost parliamentary seats, and he feels he can't dump them. He has to find them someplace to be. If he can't accommodate them in cabinet, he creates authorities for them. If he can't accommodate all of them in authorities, he creates more districts and accommodates them in those districts as RDCs. That doesn't fall an ideology.
When you free a society that had been ridden by conflict, if you passed on Kampala Road at 1 o'clock in 1976, they would take you out of your car, they would take your wife, they would murder you. Freedoms were so shut down that when you now free, I make my own religion. There's a man who calls himself God in this country. You can't touch him because the law says that all religions are free.
The president gave him a medal the other day.
I don't want
he won a medal the other day.
You have leaders who are worshipping, who are, I can't even understand, you are going to get me criticizing my own leaders, and I don't want to do that.
Drake.
You tolerate. We have done certain levels of toleration, and that toleration was because we wanted to build a platform that allows the country to understand who we are, and time is now. Because 25 million kids have been born. They are not going to seek government. They are not going to look for job because they are Catholics. They want broadband. They want a good road. That's now for me. I think that the president and all of us have an opportunity in these 5 years to chart a course that shows if we can grow, the services sector by 8%.
When did they have that opportunity?
I told you the economy returned to pre-1971 and
in
2009.
1986, when Yoweri Museveni and his...
But Charles, before you go back, I just want to take Audrey on the idea that the president has to do some of these things because he has to accommodate.
All of us.
Just all is right.
The president doesn't work alone.
But it also means that the only way the president can stop himself from being held hostage by these groups or people who claim to represent groups is by actually making sure that government delivers to the groups. Then you will be able to outwit these, you may call them blackmailers or whatever. But if the groups are not satisfied, then these smart individuals will be able to say, I represent a group, and since you fear the group is unsatisfied, you succumb.
Someone says, oh, we are so happy in our community because someone has now taken the position. I said, you are so happy over what? Because we were elected on 3 important things. Create jobs for young people. Does that position mean that all the young people in the area now have jobs? We said, the president the other day said, exports. I want to focus on exports because they create jobs. Is that community now exporting more fish now because someone has become deputy or speaker? It is the thinking, Honor, that we go to work. I said last time I was here that lack of collective values as a country. You don't blame it on President Museveni. He cannot fix they're telling him now to provide lunch in schools. Me, I went to school with my banana.
Odrek,
Parents have abandoned their
you,
responsibility.
and I think the danger.
Bulungi Bwansi has gone.
I think the reason you are shocked out of the democratic process of electing leaders for the movement is precisely that, because you're trying, you're being very honest. But the problem is...
That's the quality of NRM.
Yes, and you're pointing it to where the problem is. And I'm wondering if 5 years, another 5 years, another 5 years, another 5 years, you're confronted with exactly the same challenges and you're not dealing with them. And you're telling Ugandans that in the next 5 years, you can somehow find a way to fix them. You should read an article by Joachim Buemba in the East African for this week. I think it came out yesterday. You should read an article on what opportunity President Museveni has to do a Magufuli in this country. But let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll be looking at the aspect of democracy and the next 5 years. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this last segment of the Fourth Estate, and we'll be opening our phone lines. They'll be showing on your screen. You can call us and share your views and comments. The line is actually on your screen now. You can call us and share your views and opinions, and also put some questions to the guest Odrek Robogo or to myself and Onan, will try to give you some answers. Odrek, one of the basic tenets of your ideology, or the NRM ideology, as you talk about it, and the future you see, is based on democracy. Is what is happening to Dr. Kizza Besigye and the FDC in line with your ideology of building a democracy?
Okay. The NRM believes that you build a country by taking 3 revolutions. The first is called a political revolution, when you restore the right to vote to the common person. And I have a very good example that I use very regularly. Kahindo Tafire, who is one of my very, very good friends, goes into a constituency with a captain. He's a major general, he's a captain. The people decide that the captain today, you go home, the major general. Major generals are not defeated by captains unless you restore the right to the people.
But you can jail the captain.
Level 1 charge.
You can jail the captain, and the vote is done when he's in prison.
You're going to get I'm going to miss my train of thought. Now, the political revolution, when you succeed to restore that right to the people, it's like water. This water carries properties to give you electricity. You must transform this water, the political revolution, into an economic revolution. Roads, electricity, where we've done something. Stage 3 is called a mindset revolution. This is where we have a problem. In our police, in our civil service, even some of the application of our ideology that you're talking about is because of the lack of teaching of that stage 3. I know you want to ask me about how Besigye is treated.
Yes. No, can you answer my question?
We had an election
in jail.
You should always contextualize things.
Part of the ideology of democratization that you talk about.
Mwangusha, we went to an election. That election turned out certain results. We all participated. People objected to the results. They went to court. Court pronounced itself. Now, suddenly, someone says that all that is trash. All that is nothing, I defy. I told you that in the US, if you sit in an aircraft and say there is a bomb on board and you are joking about it, they will take you out and keep you in prison. If someone who is a senior, very responsible, has 3 million voters, chooses to spend their day in the markets where people are doing business and defies the law of the land, should we defy paying taxes? Should we defy going to school? Because that's what he's telling everyone.
If you compare that with 30
we
years
do
ago.
not know. Let me tell you.
35 years
let
ago.
me tell you what the problem is with the Besigye. And I admit these things directly, because without admitting, you don't heal, in the natural way. We do not know as a movement. We haven't sat down to agree on how to deal with this impunity. Because yes, because you really need to get NEC, SEC, the leaders of the party together and spend 2 days and say, we've now won an election. But when you win, you must bend backwards and accommodate. You must reach out, because we have issues. We need to create jobs for young people. We are not a monopoly of ideas. We need to reach out to FDC. But there is a man who says defiance should be the way. How do we treat him? Once we agree that way, and we bring that law to Parliament or anywhere, please don't worry about Besigye. He's doing this because he knows, that internally we haven't reached that consensus.
So take that consensus back 35 years ago, when the NRA decided to go to the bush.
Yes.
Were those avenues absent?
No,
But the conditions are
just
different.
hold.
What has changed?
No, I just wanted to
Besigye
add.
was on the road
Odrek,
campaigning to become president.
Odrek, I just wanted to add
President
something.
And President Museveni was on the road
Charles,
campaigning
let
to
me
become
add
president
something
in
to
1980.
Odrek's analysis.
The Bush
Odrek.
war that was fought by those two men was life and death. Besigye can choose his actions today without any controversy. He causes the controversy.
Let me ask you.
Always contextualize
In 1980,
things. You are saying
in
the rights of
1981,
60% of Ugandans who voted NRM, we should now shut our windows and go home because someone is unhappy.
Put the
It's
percentages to
wrong.
1980, 81 elections?
No, look.
1980 elections?
The
December 10th?
groundswell of stealing in 1980, of opposition to UPC in 1980, please, is incomparable to
And
what's going on in the
3.5
country.
million is not
is
not a groundswell of opposition to the NRM.
I fight to create jobs for young people. I spend my time trying to help
Please,
startups.
can
I
you
know
kindly
how
answer-
angry
can you
young
kindly
people
answer
are
my
because
question?
of lack of jobs.
Can you
But
kindly-
I know they won't get jobs by tear gas on Kampala Road. We will not allow that impunity. Those are weak states. Weak states are Africa's problem. If you allow impunity to prevail, you are.
If
What
you-
can I tell
if
you?
you
You are these
tell-
countries where they come and take
If
out
you
the
don't
leader.
allow
We
your
will not allow
opponents
it.
to oppose you, then you're living by a tenet
No.
that is one of the fundamentals of the NRM ideology.
We are in a political, you know, there is this word they use, dispensation. We're in a multi-party dispensation, right? There is a table where we all come to and we raise issues as NRM, FDC, whoever wants.
Like there was...
Mr. Besigye does not act as
Like
FDC.
there was... Like
FDC, please listen to me carefully. Mr. Besigye is even an enemy to FDC because he acts alone, acts outside of the structures. We can only have a conversation with a party, not an individual.
Honor.
Charles, I wanted
What does that put us
to return to Odrek's analysis of saying that the NRM organs could actually meet and say, we have won an election, how do we deal with the opposition? I think one of the things, in addition to bring a law, which maybe not really the solution, that you bring a law which would only be to ban opposition, maybe. But if you want, just hold on. I'm saying if you wanted to bring a law to really accommodate, I think that's one major step that is needed in this country. Because my analysis of the politics of this country is that it's largely a politics of desperation on both sides. The people who are holding power are, in many cases, desperate to hold it. And then those who want it are desperate to get it. Just hold on. Yes, you don't have to agree with me because both sides,
people of Uganda have trusted us with this responsibility.
The bulk of the players on both sides see, as we agreed earlier, or as I said, that power is for resource access. And there are a lot of people in opposition who
creating wealth for the country. Yes. Resources sharing what is already created.
Also for personal enhancement. So I think one of the challenges for NRM is how to increase participation by the opposition, not necessarily in the cabinet, but a sense of saying opposition is government in waiting, not to demonize opposition, to make sure that if you lose an election,
there is no
you
can
FDC. Just hold on.
No, absolutely, you are confusing two things.
No, I'm not.
I'm only saying is broad-basedness.
You yourself have said that you wanted something else should be done to increase.
If I tell you how many chairmen of FDC, district chairmen, who are my friends, who I have spoken to, who would want to discuss the question of agriculture, job creation, things that they want to be involved in that would create a base for them. But they are not allowed that chance because their voice is violent.
No, but you see, the problem is the language on both sides.
Everything.
The language on both sides.
And now we are deciding who
the language on both sides after an election
man.
is so belligerent. Often people see the other as an enemy. It's not so much that the country should move forward.
You are really being very soft on Mr. Besigye because who created that platform?
Odrek.
Why does NRM sound belligerent?
I'm being told by studio that we have callers, and I need to pick those callers. But you see, Odrek, the disadvantage you have spreading the NRM ideology is that you have a history to work with. And people are going to consistently draw parallels between what happened, the conditions obtaining 35 years ago, and today, to be able to project the future. And historians are going to keep analyzing and scrutinizing every piece of literature available to say where the conditions in 1981, 1980, so grave compared to the conditions today, where people running into exile, where people being jailed, where people being killed, and people are going to draw those parallels, and there's no way you're going to run away from them. But let's first pick some callers, because I need you to an honor when after we have picked some feedback from our callers to be able to discuss the next 5 years and beyond. Hello, caller. Pardon me? I can't hear you well.
It's Robert calling from Bushenyi.
Yes, please, from Bushenyi. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like Mr. Odrick to break for me the accountability of 5 million shillings per MP. I guess the accountability.
Thank you.
Odrick who gave the money.
It's as if I'm the one who took the money who gave it.
Oh, you're asking for the
I
same.
know.
Okay.
I know.
Account for the 5 million for MPs. Okay. Do we have another call online?
Which
Yes.
one is this? Is this the one of 2005 or the one
No,
of
the one of,
yesterday?
I think, the other day. So they've been cycles of giving. Eh?
Yes,
5 million.
Hello?
Hello? Yes.
Yeah, this is Alex. I'm calling from Kabale.
Yes, Alex.
I want to ask you, Waboga,
Yes.
you say the way he was actually talking, he's saying we are doing this, and as if he thinks as if the government is his or is theirs. It means the government is actually, they have made a section of people who own the government against others.
Thank you, Alex. Do you have another
Yeah.
call online? Hello?
We are as a movement.
Okay, you'll have opportunity to respond. Hello?
Hello, I'm on the line.
Yes.
My name is Apollo from Chenjojo.
Yes, Apollo.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Apollo. We can hear you.
Apollo from Chenjojo.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to ask you that it is very unfair to compare the elections of the failed elections of 1980 to the elections of 2016.
Yes.
Some of us were mature.
Charles was
Go ahead.
Elections of
for one.
2016.
Go ahead.
And then two, I wanted also you to compare, especially the presenter,
Go ahead.
to compare the great changes that have taken place in this country from 1981 to the present.
Can you give some
The great
examples?
changes, actually, I call them great changes myself.
Give
I
me
have
some
every
examples.
Reason to support it.
Yes, give me some examples of those great changes, or what you call great changes.
Security, peace and security here. Soldiers used to beat everybody left and right. They would take one's wife, they would take one's daughter. That was evident enough that there is a fundamental change in this country.
Certainly.
Is that all?
Yes?
Is that all?
No, we would import beer. You didn't allow time enough for drink talk. We're importing. We didn't have beer here. People were getting beer from Kenya.
Apollo, even bread was not here.
Even people were using popo to wash their clothes. These are issues that you are not really taking into account.
Is that in 1981 or 1986?
It was around an time, of course. 81 was not a very big difference from 79. Pardon?
Okay. Let's have another caller. Hello? 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 Do you have another caller? Hello?
Good evening, Charles.
Good evening, sir.
Very fine, sir. How are you?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your name, sir?
Yes,
Your name, sir?
my name is Amulan Tumusime.
Yes, Tumusime. Amlan Tumusime sounds like an RDC. Is that the one?
No, no.
Okay.
I'm calling from Hoima.
Yes.
Yes, I want to thank Audrey Rabogo for really spreading the gospel of NRM ideology. Because I know very well that many people are listening and they are appreciating that the message is given out is very good for this country, especially the younger people.
Okay.
And indeed, it is spot on because there are a lot of changes. Especially some of us who stay in the villages are aware that today you can remove the entire 10 to 15 kilometers in the entire village looking for a grass-thatched house, and you cannot find it. There's safe and clean water in most parts of the country. The road network is okay. So I'm just encouraging him to move on.
Thank you, Amlan.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we need to come back to the studio. So there are some plaudits for you, Audrek. I wanted to respond to the gentleman first, Apollo from Kinjojo, who says we can't compare the elections of 1980 to the ones of 2016. The only thing I can say is that the elections of 1980 were not, that dispute was not resolved in a court of law. It was resolved in the jungles of Luwero, where some, according to the records available, 500,000 Ugandans perished in that war. The elections of 2001, 2006, 2016 ended in court, disputed. The elections of 2011 were resolved on the streets of Kampala with the walk to work. So there are some areas where those elections can be compared.
We will not really like that we subterfuge facts about these two epochs in our history. In 1980, the country was in such a bad shape after 1979. Remember, the economy started contracting around 78. That's when coffee prices went down, and then Idi Amin attacked Tanzania, and the rest we know. 1980, there were 4 boxes at every polling station, black boxes, and they said that's UPC, that's DP, right? Now
that's UPM.
That's UPM.
Yes.
People came, you knew where you were putting your ballot. In the end, they would lift those boxes. There was no opening of boxes before the poll. Everything was in shambles. Secondly, the man who announced was called Paulo Mwanga. He certainly knew that they had lost, and he disbanded the Electoral Commission and took over the process. Today, any election observer, even those who really criticize us without knowing our background, who we just look at Netuseka, because you really don't know much of us, you just go around Kampala. There is certainly transparent boxes. We all elect, cast our votes. We wait and count on polling stations. They have telephones, there is internet that shows that you can only be transparent. If you're not, you will be caught. These two things are completely different, and I think we shouldn't let that stand. Me, I want to thank Apollo, because Apollo reminded me in Chenjojo that we were using mapapali to wash. I know about that. I know about that. I know that I used a type of plant called Congoranet as tea leaves, because there was no tea leaves in the country. I was a boy going to S1.
That was very healthy.
You cannot compare these two situations. I really want, I told you, White Cup. I drank beer called White Cup in 1988. It was imported from Kenya. Bread. Amos Nzei started Pepsi Cola down the road 5 years after 1980. The country was in a bad shape. When you have gone down and died in my area, they say that when you come from underground, you don't look at the sun and say, this sun is too small, because you've been underground. We are only going to be able to manage changes in the next, and this is why the next 5 years is critical for me. And really understand people who are saying 5 million. A guy said, can you explain 5 million? Sir, I can't explain 5 million. I told you that I was not in that house. I am not aware of the conditions that MPs asked for this money, and I am not here to make judgments. What I know is that we have had an aberration. We have had trouble implementing our ideology with people who come into the system without ideological shaping. They think they are there because of their tribe, religion, and we are not helping them when we are leaders of this country. And you hear in an election people using tribal talk, and they remain in those positions. In the next 5 years, we want to see a harsh stick on that kind of behavior in the party. Because if you stop Audrek from running and he goes and teaches, why is another person running away from the party shouting their mouth off because they've been denied a position? You've not been. Me, I was stopped. I'm back to the trenches helping.
Who stopped you? I thought in a democratic dispensation, the voters are supposed to stop you or move you, move you forward.
There's a very good English writer I read a long time ago. I bought his book yesterday. He's called Kipling, Rudyard Kipling. He, in one of his poems, he says that sometimes the game is larger and more important than the players, that the ship you are traveling on is more important than the crew. Because the captain can fall sick, but the ship must take you across the waters. I stood aside because I know the ship NRM is more important than one guy called Odrek.
You were asked, Odrek.
No one actually has ever called me. Can I tell you? No one has ever called me. No one has ever, because they said,
who is they?
Sek. I respect Sek. I saluted and walked away. Charles. Anyway, you are driving me in another direction. The point of the matter is that for me, I just wanted to first respond to, there's a gentleman who said that you as who? Well, I'm speaking as
Alex. Alex,
I apologize. When I say we, I use collective responsibility of the movement, even if I'm not a minister, MP, or even LC1. They told me to go back to LC1 and become an LC1 chairman. I will go back because that's where we all were born.
I love your choice of they, we.
Sek.
No, they told me.
It's the highest decision-making body of our party. I had to salute and walk away and go back to the trenches and teach. And I believe that what Amla and Tumsim is telling you, we're doing a good job.
Yes.
Yeah, look,
we are taking back people.
Okay, let me take a message
again, I just also want to definitely agree with the callers that in terms of the macro situation of the country, in terms of really what it takes for a country to function, I think the NRM has done it. But I return to my earlier argument that people who did not vote for the president, it's really about feeling that they are not getting a fair share of the cake. Whether it's a real cake that is perceived to be there or it's not there.
They want jobs. That's
what they want jobs. They use, for example. But nobody disputes a lot of things that the callers are
Gentlemen, our time is out. Our time is out. Unfortunately for this show, unlike in politics, we can't extend our stay. We must end the show when it's
But we haven't talked about the next 5 years.
Yes, let me just pick a couple of messages. One is from Jose Nwabine. He's in Kabola Liantonde. He says, guys, it's true that Uganda's economy had broken down before NRM. But why is it so difficult to catch up with middle-income countries in Africa like Mauritius, Seychelles, Gabon, Botswana?
They have 1
South
million
Africa,
people. We
just
have
a moment,
35 million
South
people.
Africa, Algeria, and high-income countries like Qatar, Singapore, which were once at the same level as Uganda.
Can he
No, I think the president identified the problem during his swearing in the issue of corruption
and export.
No, he said corruption and failure of the civil service to work the way it should be.
And let me take another minute. This is Ladu who says, are you really following Bwana Odrek? Somebody wake me up when you guys are done. I think he's extremely disappointed with the performance tonight.
Performance of who? Of Odrek?
No, of the show. Odrek, I want you to explain in simple, basic language.
Yes.
Some people look at the Ugandan population and say there is a a population dividend that comes out of a larger population.
Yes.
President Museveni has been talking about a larger population, combining East Africa, having 150 million, a market of 150 million. On one hand. On the other hand, wailing about a large population.
Very quickly, when the population growth is, in terms of economic basic standard, population growth grows faster than the way you are building the economy, you are bound to have less jobs. This issue for me that my brother, and I know him, I know this gentleman, is raising, is you can't compare Botswana, Mauritius with 1 or 2 million people with a high per capita income out of minerals and out of other resources they do. But that's not an excuse for us not to grow the economy. So I'm agreeing on one side. Here is what we need to do in the next 5 years. This gentleman seated here, my brother Honor, he works with a company called SAB Miller. They are owned by SAB Miller. SAB Miller is Africa's largest brewer. They have recently...
It's actually, I think, the world's largest. Now you're competing. You're
second
largest.
No,
Second
there is
largest.
Anheuser-Busch,
Which is the first.
which is the biggest. Started 1858. It's another story that I know about. But
So this is the second largest.
AB, it's called ABENV. The largest, they want 30% of the beer market in the world. They have come to his company. They want to buy it for $108 billion in South Africa. The Minister for Economic Development, he's the one who did the deal. This is the difference now about how you really teach values and ideology, not people holding positions. Now, Patel, his name is Ibrahim Patel, he sits, he says, okay, before I pass this deal, I need you to commit $100 million to people who produce sorghum and hops and,
barley.
and barley. And they said, here is the money. We're going to purchase, but here is the money. Say, I also want you to guarantee 10,000 jobs of our farmers and the people you find there. Sign on the dotted line. And then I pass the deal. Deals like that are not coming to our country because there's limited thinking on how you raise new capital for growth.
Thank you.
That one bothers me as much as it bothers you.
You know, there's so many
So
examples.
for me...
There's so many examples that you give, and I'm thinking, what happened in the case of this and this production unit?
Because we've
what
been
happened in the
held
case
down.
of this and this? And I'm wondering, is there a different
Our
set of people?
services sector grows 8%.
Is there a different
annually.
set of
Agriculture
people?
grows 3.1.
Is there a different set
Small.
of people who hold the ideological thinking of the NRM from those who govern the country? What is the problem with those who govern the country as opposed to those who hold the ideological thinking?
Because
but Audrey, I'm told our time is out. Actually, it's about 11:17 now. We should have gotten out of here like 7 minutes ago. Just one quick question. President Museveni has repeatedly identified corruption as one of the biggest problems. He has identified, you are outlining them, Honor. Can he deal with them in the next 5 years?
The inertia in the public
the inertia in the public service. He's had 30 years to transform the public service. There are hardly any public servants in the public service he inherited from previous governments. Most of them are people he has recruited and run government with over the last 30 years.
Look, he has passed through, you need to even go beyond that. He has made laws, set up institutions, IGG. The largest amount of institutions have been created under the movement. But he didn't give birth to Kazinda. Kazinda didn't start stealing when he became principal accountant. Kazinda's attitude comes from somewhere, from a society that says if you build more houses, you are successful. If we don't know what you do in your area, but as long as you are building a church, you are successful. We must help President Museveni remove this mantra of assuming that he's the one who is going to stop corruption in the country and hold each of ourselves responsible. That's why we teach patriotism. If Honor takes money of his company, he has taken 10 jobs away.
He has promised zero tolerance.
He has said,
you're going to see
in fact,
the guerrilla in me.
He said that he's going to personally, those are the words he uses, intervene. Now, I just don't want him to just be, he needs to use an institutional approach.
Can he? Will he?
He can, because this generation,
Will he?
generation of those fighters, I think they have these 5 years to really make it, or there's another generation that will take over from them, whether they want it or not. So he has, I mean, in my opinion, I feel that President Museveni has achieved whatever he wanted. He would want this country to be a middle-income country before he leaves. How can he not handle corruption or exports when he has put a stand and said, judge me on this? All I'm asking you is that media houses like you, don't be, you know, there's something...
I remember those headlines 5 years ago,
you
10 years ago.
Following Besigye in order
5 years ago, 10 years ago, that said
and what
zero tolerance to corruption. Museveni declares, and I wait, zero tolerance to corruption, and it doesn't.
Look, I think earlier Odrek intimated the president has to make compromises. So long as he has an eye in the future elections, he will unfortunately have to make compromises which will undermine his conviction to find corruption.
I think we need to create a platform that denies him those compromises. For me, I'm teaching, I'm speaking to young people openly, transparently, what the country requires as a farmer, as an entrepreneur. If he goes to the group I'm working with and he chooses to pick anyone of them because they are Catholics or Anglicans, I will say no.
Gentlemen, our time is out. Our time is out. Our time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much, Audrey Robogo, for making time for the show. Thank you very much, Honor Ekomolite, for making time for the show. And thank you very much to you, all our viewers, for joining us tonight and always, and especially those of you who gave us feedback. Jason from Makerere, I saw your message. It came in towards the end. Not able to take it. And those of you have been trying to call through, and each one of you has been following the show. For me, it's a good night.